What's up, guys? Welcome to an episode of Aledius Sports Talk. I'm your host, Enrique Aledius, and we got just pretty fun episode, I think. I'm going to talk about football game last night. Thursday night football happened between the Eagles. Going to talk about the preview of this upcoming weekend. Going to touch on New Jersey Devils hockey talk. That's my favorite team, so I'll talk a little about that. Talk about a little bit what's going on in the NHL. We got Connor McDavid basically proving why he is a legend in this sport right now. Let's get into it. All right, so let's dive into it. Let's dive into first. We'll talk about Thursday Night Football first, right? I think it was a really huge win for the Eagles here to go up to 8-2. I think they are now. Yeah, they're 8-2. And this was a game like I kind of felt like there would be a little bit more high scoring. I think there was, in the first quarter, the Eagles missed a field goal. Commanders take the lead there. They get a touchdown. And, it was one of those games I felt like initially, I thought like Eagles, Jalen Hurts, like they weren't really catching that rhythm that they normally have. And, you see Hurts miss that throw to, I think it was A.J. Brown. And, those are the kind of plays that like, I'm not going to say, it's like characteristic kind of Jalen Hurts a little bit this season to have kind of gotten off to a slow start, and then all of a sudden he picks up. So, and then he's led by guys like Saquon Barkley, which happened a lot in this game. And, there's just these trustworthy guys, which, that's crazy where for me, I think in years past or last year where, they kind of lose steam at the end of the season, like last year, I think it was where they just basically had a meltdown and they just lost almost every game. I think it was like the last fourth of the season or whatever. And I feel like now, like with Saquon there, he has that, I think, calming presence when he starts to play, get his yards and he starts to really, explode and have explosive runs and things like that. I think there's this, at least if I'm watching and if I was an Eagles fan, I would just feel like, all right, let's just get Saquon the ball. Let's get him to, get the yards up, get a touchdown or two here and there, and and they'll still be in the game. As opposed to years past, like you didn't really have that. I think for a little bit they had, was it Miles Sanders or whoever? If Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith, like that connection wasn't on point, then I think they struggled. And you would also see Hurts kind of take it on himself to kind of now, be the run game. And it was not always productive, I guess, for the Eagles to, win games like that. But I think this game, I got to give credit. I mean, I give credit to the Eagles defense. I thought they did a really good job. I don't think Terry McLaurin, let me look. I don't know if Terry McLaurin really had, as much of an impact on this game as I thought he would. I think, just see what the stats he had was. I think when going into this game, when you're thinking about it, you would imagine that Terry McLaurin is going to have a lot of yardage, right? So he had like 10 yards. Wow, he had like one reception, 10 yards. Austin Eckler was the guy that had 8 receptions. Zach Ertz had 6 receptions, but man, John Bates had 2 receptions, 17 yards. So yeah, McLaurin did not have that much. Zacchaeus only had 10 yards receiving too. I mean, that's very, again, credit to defense, but that's very interesting that the Commanders, who, when you have Jaden Daniels this whole year, when I've gotten success this year, it's been largely on the shoulders of Jaden Daniels being able to kind of pass that ball around and have guys like McLaurin, really get yards for them and things like that. And Zacchaeus, really perform well for them. And so if you look at this game, and I think the Eagles defense this game really is the unsung hero. I think Barkley will definitely get a lot of the attention. But this game could have been a runaway. I don't think there was really, in that first half, especially I think that first quarter, to me, it didn't look like the Eagles had it. I was kind of like worried that if they didn't get points in the first half at all, and it was like by the end of the second quarter, they still had nothing. It was still 7-0, right? And then Hurts comes in with that run at the end, and they're in the red zone, and they have a chance to have a touchdown there, and he just kind of squibs the ball in front of him or whatever, and there's a field goal opportunity. They get it. I mean, Jake Elliott was struggling a little bit this whole game, and I think he did miss a extra point. He missed a field goal, and so that kind of throws off a little bit, like just the flow of the game when there's points up for grabs that you feel like you should have, whether it's the extra point or a field goal, and you can't convert on it. And then those red zone opportunities, you can't get it either. So I think that's something that was concerning in the beginning. But again, like the Commanders weren't able to really take the lead and really get control of the game. They were able to start off the second half with a field goal, pushing it to 10-3. But you would hope, if you're a Commanders fan, that they would run away with it a little bit. Because this Eagles team, I think they are this year have been a second half team to a certain extent. I think they've really turned it on, and again, you have there was this incredible run by Saquon, right? It was like 7 minutes, 7:30 or 7:40 in the third quarter, and he just gets them in position to get the first points up on the board, I think, but there they are again, right? They're at the red zone and able to get 6 points up there, or 7 points, and they have to settle for a field goal, which Jake Elliott, good thing he did that, but he was able to push that one through. But so overall, I think again, like you look at the defense, they were able to really put pressure on Jaden Daniels, and those are the kind of things you need from a really well-rounded team. And I feel like not a lot of credit seems to always be given to Sirianni, and I was just watching the Pat McAfee show today, and I'm glad he kind of stuck up for Sirianni. They had him on the show, and it's just weird to see like a lot of the analysts just kind of trash Sirianni and not give him credit for. And again, it's not. I'm not going to say it's like unwarranted. Like there are things that Sirianni has done in terms of like not just going for it, or not just going for the points, but going for it and doing certain plays here and there, but. I don't know. I just look at like they're 8-2 now, and he is on there's that stat where they were talking about earlier on that Pat McAfee show where like him and like it's like Sirianni and 4 other Hall of Fame coaches are the only ones to have like this win-loss record or whatever. I mean, I have to kind of double check that, but like that's awesome. I mean, that's an incredible stat and incredible accomplishment for him to have. And I mean, he got just like a lot of the media just fucking toasting him, and it's interesting that I don't know, like why does someone like Sirianni get heat? Meanwhile, you have other coaches who are on teams. I mean, like a Daboll. Like I think Brian Daboll should be on much more of a hot seat, which I'm sure he kind of is with Giants fans, but he's not talked about, I don't think, enough in terms of why is he putting his QB under the bus like he did with the comments, like just certain things like Doug Peterson. I mean, although I think he is kind of in a hot seat too, but like I think there's other coaches who are in much worse situations than the Eagles who for some reason get away with their team being the way that they are. It's a very interesting situation. And I think while we're on that, I do want let me touch on the whole Mike McCarthy, Micah Parsons situation. And like, I don't know, I think whenever he comes out and kind of says what he says, right? And it is talked about on other shows, again, like Pat McAfee talks about it, but other people have talked about it, where like it was not the part of him, like the first part of his statement in that post-game interview is not the part that I think was bad. The part of, the coaches can go wherever he wants or whatever. To me, that's not bad. It's the ending, and everyone's already heard this, but like it's that ending where he's like, oh, well, it's for the guys that have worked harder than Mike McCarthy has ever had. or worked harder than Mike McCarthy ever had worked or whatever, something like that. And to me, that is the part that I think is a little, it's just a questionable statement. And like, again, he is one of the best. Like, he's not going anywhere. He's got that, like, it's that whole thing of be who you can afford to be, right? Like, again, Pat talks about it on the show a bunch, but like, it is true. He can be who he wants to be, or he can be this because he can afford to be this way and not get let go by the team. But it's like, I don't know. I feel like a little self-awareness would be good. I mean, your team, the Cowboys, are not playing well. I don't know if Micah Parsons is having his best year, but he's still insanely talented, incredible player. It's just like it's almost like you're putting your coach in a really tough spot because Mike McCarthy is basically on his last year, and Micah knows that he's not going to get let go. He knows Mike McCarthy is probably not going to come back. So what can Mike McCarthy actually say? Like, how can he kind of, fight back in this? Because he can't. He's the coach. Anything he says, again, analysts are going to grill him. It doesn't look good as him on his way out if he trashes a team. It's like, it's almost like Micah puts himself in this escape hatch situation where he knows he can say whatever he wants. And it's like, oh, I didn't throw him under the bus. I didn't do any of that. But meanwhile, everyone, the perception is there. The perception kind of is like, well, you did say harder than Mike McCarthy ever has. And meanwhile, I'm just like, this guy won a Super. Like, Mike McCarthy's won a Super Bowl. He's coached Aaron Rodgers. He's coached, like, a lot of these amazing players. And it's like, he doesn't work hard. Super Bowl, winner. He hasn't worked hard. I don't know. It's a tough look. And I just think also coming from someone like, Micah Parsons, who, again, amazing player, great player, but like, I just feel like, what has he accomplished in relative to Mike McCarthy's resume that gives him the ground, to be able to stand on that, plat or whatever, stand on that whole thing of, he could say Mike McCarthy hasn't worked for anything at all. He's never worked, as hard as anyone else ever has. It's just whatever that whole thing was. But yeah, it's tough. I mean, I think like whenever you have a situation like that and coaches and players are involved, that are kind of going their separate ways or whatever, who knows if Mike McCarthy does come back, but it's weird. I mean, I always so I grew up playing hockey, and I always felt like hockey locker rooms were always, even now you look at it now in the NHL, and it's not like I ever played, I didn't play like in pro or whatever, or anything like that, but just in general, hockey locker rooms, whether you're on AA, AAA, or juniors and whatever, just the hockey culture is always much more, I guess, like, I'm not going to say, not that football players are not respectful. They definitely are. But like, there's a certain thing you don't do in hockey culture and compared to other sports or whatever. And I feel like, it's interesting how in the NFL compared to hockey, I don't know how often you get this situation in like the NHL. And I don't think it means it's better or worse. I just think in like the NHL, honestly, I think sometimes the NHL is a little boring. Like football, at least in the NFL, you got personality and stuff like that. I think hockey, they're getting better with trying to have personality and players being able to show who they are. And maybe it was always there, but like it was maybe looked down upon or frowned upon in hockey locker rooms. But I just think like the dynamic between the coach and the players, it's like, if you have something to say about someone's work ethic and what they put into their job every day and everything like that, I think that's something that's just, you kind of do that, right, behind closed doors, or like in the old wrestling business, you take them in, in the back in the showers and you kind of like hash it out and you let them know or whatever. But to say it in the media, and then the part that I'm not a fan of is for him to sit like, well, I never intended to throw him under the bus. I didn't throw him. It's like, but you got to have at least some, I don't know, some awareness to know how your comments come across. It's like, I just don't think, like, Micah knows the media. He knows this world. He has a podcast. He's very, I just think he's very in tune with what the media does and how they twist words and create a narrative based upon certain comments. And then for him to almost like really be given fodder, it's like, oh, here, like, yeah, I'm just going to say something that everyone's going to eat up and lap up. But then I'm going to go back and say, oh, I didn't mean to throw him under the bus. It wasn't really meant to be any of that. It's just that's where it becomes. That's where I feel like not the biggest fan of. Because if you're going to say it, then say it. If you're going to say Mike McCarthy doesn't work hard, he's never worked hard. Essentially, I mean, that's basically I feel like what he was trying to get at. It's like compared to other guys in the locker room, other guys in the locker room, the veterans in the locker room work harder than Mike McCarthy ever did. Like if that's the crux of what he's trying to get at, then just say it and stand by it. Be like, yeah, I said that, as opposed to, oh, I didn't, I didn't throw him under the bus. But again, like it is what it is. That's going to happen, and it's that's just how things go sometimes, and it's tough, right? I think when you're in a season that's frustrating, like the Cowboys have been in, things kind of get a little heated, and also I think too, like the media doesn't always help, right? Like I'm sure none of this would have been an issue if, like, I don't think he necessarily brought this up on his own. I think he was just asked about Mike McCarthy, and that's, I could see that side of it too. It's like if you're just asked a question, you're just answering, so that part's a little tough. But yeah, I think that's kind of, it's a tough deal there in Dallas for sure. But I think going back quickly just to finish up on the game with the Eagles, I was in that second half. I think the Eagles really turned it up. I really liked what they did. I think again, this team I think is led by Saquon. He's been the difference maker, and man, Giants fans have to be just like fucking going crazy with how everything turned out with Saquon, from not getting him back, from the way that when he was with the team, you stick Daniel Jones there, and I'm sorry, but like I feel like it's been long enough, this whole Daniel Jones experiment. I feel like it's been long enough to where a majority of Giants fans, right, can actually say that he is not the future. Maybe I'm wrong, for the sake of the Giants. Hopefully I'm wrong, I guess. They paid him money and all that stuff, but like, I don't know if, we're looking at a guy who, I don't know how long it's been. Has it been 5 years or something? Like however long it's been that the Giants have had Daniel Jones, right? You have someone like Saquon, and the team around him just wasn't as great, and that's just, it's tough. It's unfortunate. It's very frustrating, I bet, for Giants fans to like year over year to kind of have to see that. And then for that whole thing in the Hard Knocks to come out of just like how their GM handled that whole thing, and how like Mara was actually saying like, no, I don't want to lose Saquon to the Eagles, and sure enough, like they fucking lose Saquon to the Eagles, and everyone, like even Belichick came on, he's like, yeah, everyone kind of knew he was going to the Eagles. I don't know why. Was it Joe Shane, or I forgot how you pronounce his name, but like he was basically trying to say like, no, I don't think the Eagles. I think there's talks about the Bears, being interested in Saquon or whatever it was he said. It just how that whole deal went down is very interesting, and that if that's how, like, it's surprising that that's how a team like the Giants is run. That was very weird. That was, I don't know, tough. Like if I was a Giants fan, it'd be tough to watch and to see what Saquon has done this year, because it'd be one thing if Saquon wasn't doing well, if the Eagles like weren't having the success they had, but man, it is very, very tough to watch if you're a Giants fan to see Saquon score touchdown after touchdown, reverse hurdle, just stack yards on yards on yards, and be like, this is the guy that they had literally in their building for so long, for a good amount of time. And they didn't want to pay him. Like they didn't want to pay this guy, and they didn't want to, invest and build a team around this guy. Instead, they chose to build it more so around like a Daniel Jones and what I don't know. Like I didn't really pay attention too much to the inner workings of how the Giants wanted to go about things. So maybe if you guys are watching, like the Giants fans watching this could comment more so on this, but I don't know. I'm just like watching him score touchdown after touchdown this Thursday Night Football, and like I just can't imagine that the Giants are happy with what they did, or Mara is happy with what he did. I'm so surprised the GM's not fired. I'm very surprised that like that is he's still there. But I don't know. We'll see how it turns out. But overall, this game, I think this game, just to kind of close it on thoughts on this game, I think the Commanders have, I thought they were just the Eagles defense played well. I thought the Commanders young team, and this is one of those games where it's like a bit of a learning lesson. I don't know if they played terrible. I mean, I thought that first half was good. They just couldn't like execute. They couldn't really get ahead and pull away. But like, did I think Jaden Daniels played bad? And I don't necessarily think bad would be the right term. I just think he couldn't really, like, just execute on those plays and be able to get it in the end zone. I think they made a push in the final minute or so. But I think that like being able to, for the Eagles, being able to come back like they did is a good thing, especially in the beginning of the year when they kind of had like question marks about how they were winning games and people, again, questioning their culture and questioning their coach and things like that. So, yeah, I mean, I don't really have any concern for either one of these teams. I know the Commanders, I think this is their back-to-back loss, right? They're lost again, but I really don't have a whole lot of concern about them. I think who do they get next? They are facing the Titans next, so I think that's a favorable matchup for them. Oh no, I'm sorry, Cowboys are next, which another one is a favorable matchup for them. Yeah, I don't have no problems or have no concerns about the Commanders. This was just a game that they weren't able to really pull away when they had the chance. When the Eagles were kind of struggling in the first half, they didn't have that chance to pull away. But credit to the Eagles, they did a good job, and they're 8-2, and the Sirianni train keeps on rolling, no matter what people have to say or shit on about him, about it all. But keeps on rolling. So good for them. All right, so I'm going to touch on right now the Devils. Pivot to hockey real quick because I just definitely want to talk about this. The Devils sweeping the Florida Panthers twice at home, reigning, defending Stanley Cup champions. That was pretty sweet. That was awesome. I feel like Devils tend to do this is where they often play up to the standard of the team that they're up against, right? Especially when they're like facing against really good talent. Like I feel like these group of guys they always look at it as a challenge, And I was at the game with the Sharks, and even that game, like people may want to say what they want about the Sharks and that they should have beat them, handedly or whatever, but. The Sharks are a good team. I mean, they're getting better. They were kind of in the game against the Rangers, and the Rangers are a really good team. So, like, you look at the Devils that game. I was at that game. I thought, I just didn't think they're like their passes and their plays were kind of crisp. I think they were a little off the mark a little bit, but that game was just a matter of two teams exchanging momentum. But you look at this, the game against the Panthers, and then these two games. Personally, I thought this latest one, the second game they played against the Panthers, this was probably one of their best games of the season so far, honestly. I think they I'm not going to say dominated, but they played really well. Like they clogged up a lot of the passing lanes. They were fast. They had pace. They put pucks on net, early and often. I thought everyone looked good from Bratter to Hughes to I thought Allen did really well in there. There was that period of time in the first period where there was a flurry of attack, and I think it's when the Devils got a penalty. I think it was the first period, but the Panthers had a bit of a lot of pressure there, a bit of an onslaught there, and the middle of that period, and Jake Allen really did a good job making key stops. Because I think, again, like a team like the Panthers, you give them the lead early, and it is a hard hill to climb. It's weird because they just play pretty aggressively, and especially when they have a lead, they do so well. And this is what this is why they were champs last year. It's like they do so well with like maintaining it and really discouraging you, and them knowing that because they have a lead or 2 goals or 3 or whatever it is, but like when they have the lead, they are so good at being careful and not being careless and being responsible with like the way they play when they hold that lead. And that whole thing. And what I did like with what the Devils did was they got the goals. Like this was like the first goal with Nason. Like this was a shot from the point, right? So a shot from the point here, and he's just there in the bottom, gets the rebound, battles through the defenseman, right? Gets around the defenseman, backhands it in, and those are the kind of goals that like you're gonna beat Bobrovsky with, like because he's an incredible goalie, incredible left to lateral movement, seals the ice really well down low. And so you're not going to beat him all the time by just a straight shot. Although in this game there was one of the pretty sick shot. I think it was it Cotter? Was it someone? Maybe Bratt. Bratt had a sick shot. But there were, a lot of chances that I really liked the way the Devils played, the way that they just battled in front and didn't like normally, or not normally, but there are the times when they don't play well or times that gets frustrating is when they're just like taking their chances on the outside and they always try passing too much. I mean, that was a thing in like the Sharks game. They were just passing. There was a point in the Sharks game when I was at there that the crowd was chanting, literally chanting, shoot the puck. Like they were chanting, shoot the puck. And there was just a lot of passing. And I know, like, this is what I don't like, though, about when crowds do that or when the crowds try to act like they're smarter than the players playing the game on the ice is, like, if anyone's played, like, I played hockey throughout college and I was the goalie and I'm not the biggest dude in the world, right? So, like, when you're a goalie, like, or when I played goalie, as I got older, like, players are huge. And NHL, like, everyone's massive in NHL, right? Especially these days, a lot of big players. And it's not always like just because you're as a fan, you're sitting on the top view and you're looking down and you could see like the guy in the point, Hamilton has the puck at the point or Hughes has the puck at the top of the circle. Just because you could see a path to the net doesn't mean it's actually there, right? Like there's a lot of times where if you were on that ice level with them and you got to see what they saw, you would see nothing but like bodies in front. And it's not an efficient scoring chance. Like there's no reason to throw the puck towards the net because it's going to hit a body, deflect away, and it's just not a good chance. And so like I mean, even I have to kind of remember that. Like it's frustrating when they don't shoot the puck often. I will say that like I don't think, but I do think the crowd does have a point when they say shoot the puck. Like they do have a point there by saying you got at least you can't pass too much. But it's not as easy as everyone wants to believe, and that's just a tough thing. But I will say in this game, I really like the fact that they shot the puck. I mean, look, Bratter gets a goal in the last, 1.4 seconds. And then also in the second period, the last, like, less than a minute, they get a goal. Like those late period goals, like historically, the Devils have always let up, right? So for this time around, for them to be the one that gets the goal and puts it on the other team and reigning Stanley Cup champions, no less, right? Like they get the goal. That's huge. That's a huge thing for them to be able to get the goal and put some pressure on the Panthers coming out of the intermission. It was great. I mean, I feel like the way they played this game, like I think Coach Keefe talks about it in one of the behind the scenes videos. It's like that's the new standard, right? That's the standard now for like how you play and how you are able to put the pressure on teams and things like that. And of course, that doesn't mean you win every game, but I just think that the standard, the effort, the aggressiveness they played with, the pace they played with is there. Again, even if you look at the Mercer goal, it's like Mercer doesn't even shoot the puck. It's like I think it was Heischer pushes shoots the puck or tries to pass it in the center of the net, and I think it just goes off bodies that are like Mercer's just sliding over. I mean, Bratt's crashing the net. Yeah, like Heischer just puts it. It deflects off a defenseman's skate. I think it's Kulikov. I think it deflects off Kulikov's skate or whoever is in. It could be Kulikov. I'm trying to see, but like whoever's in front, it just deflects off bodies. It deflects off the skate. sorry, that was Jack Hughes passing it in front. It's like it deflects off a skate in front and it goes in. And like goals like that, like those are the kind of goals that beat high level goalies like Bobrovsky and the Vasilevskis and teams like that. It's like that has to. I feel like that's something that the Devils, especially with, being young, a young team or a couple young guys on the team, it seems like they always want to go for the pretty goal, the pretty snipe, and sometimes like that's what kills them is when they try to be too fancy and just shooting it towards the net is what's going to get the chances. And who knows? I mean, this game I thought Bobrovsky had a couple leaky goals. Honestly, like there were a couple shots that not very Bobrovsky like to give up. But hey, I mean that happens, and Devils just have to take advantage of that. But you don't take advantage of that if you're not shooting the puck, and that's been frustrating when they lose games. It's simply just because I think it's not that they're outskilled or whatever. It's the fact that they just didn't really put more quality chances on net compared to the other guys. And so I thought they definitely did that this game. I thought they did a great job of that this game. And huge win by the Devils. And I thought, again, Jake Allen played really well. Markstrom played incredible in the past game. And that's another thing too, that it's like it's very cool to have, right? I mean, like I was a huge fan of Akira Schmidt last season. I feel like, or past 2 seasons, I feel like I wish he was the guy that we kept, because I just think that he has the potential he has with his size. He has potential with the size of him, his the way he plays, the way that like he seals the ice well, and if he did put everything together and get everything all have his just improve on his skills, the way he reads the game, his hockey IQ, all that kind of stuff, and just being more tight, like just being able to tighten up the way he plays and improve his glove hand, and like things like that. Like he'd be an incredible goalie. He'd be incredible goalie. It's just that like I feel like he was put in a bit of an unfair position where, I mean, his first real NHL taste of being an NHL regular was in the playoffs. Like he gets put, and not just the playoffs, against the Rangers. And this is like one of the most, like biggest rivalries of all time. And you're being put in there as a little, it's a rookie, and it's a little like nerve-wracking. Like this is ridiculous, and everyone's expecting the Rangers to just pull away and win. I think that's probably the big thing too about it, was there was no expectation on him. So he was able to just come in there and be like, well, if he doesn't play well, it doesn't matter. The expectation was never there. But once he had played really well like that, then it became a little bit of a tougher thing to kind of live up to. But we'll see. He's in Vegas, and we'll see how it goes. But when it comes to the Devils goalies now, like I'm so happy that we have Markstrom, and Vitek was awesome. I thought, again, another guy that like just couldn't really get that like a rhythm going. I thought a bit of a tough hand dealt with because our team was like always shorthanded last year with key guys being out or whatever. But I do think like getting a guy like Markstrom and Jake Allen, like Markstrom being the starter, but just him being such a solid guy back there, and like you don't have to worry about if a stop's going to be made, or because like Schmidt, rookie, right? Nico Dawes, rookie. Vitek never really was the starter yet at that point in his NHL career, so that's in a sense he's like a new beginner in that, or not beginner, but like it's new to be a starter, right? And then when you have a guy like Markstrom come in, who is a proven starter, it just changes the game. It just changes everything for sure. So yeah, I mean, having Markstrom there, and one of the things I really love about Markstrom's game was a lot of things, but I do like a lot about how he plays. He's pretty like he's aggressive, but he's also calm, if that makes sense. Like he doesn't stay deep in his net, and his movements are always controlled. He's not. I mean, he had that first game of the season where he had that paddle save or whatever. He was swimming a little bit there, but for the most part, like he's not finding himself outside the crease too much, largely because of his size. He's a big dude, so he doesn't have to, challenge out so far. And when he, butterfly slides, it's always he has good crease control. I always kind of call it. It's like his ability to stay to manage his space. Like so I'm a goalie. I grew up playing hockey, and I'm a goalie coach now. And I was very lucky and fortunate to work with Mitch Korn, who's the goalie coach of the Predators. I've known him since I was like 15. Still kind of work with him now, doing coaching on his goalie school sometimes, but a lot of times I do film content for his goalie camps and his goalie schools. And I sit in on these lectures where I have to record stuff, and Mitch Korn talks a lot about he talks about a lot of things, and it's incredible to hear him talk about position and goaltending and the people he's coached over the years or whatever. But things like managing your space within the crease, reading the play, reacting well, positioning yourself when you don't have eyes on the puck, the percentages of all that, and things like that. I just feel like Markstrom, being the pro and the vet that he is, he's just really good at having awareness of the space around him, awareness of his crease, and putting himself in a position to not only just make the save, but be ready for the second and third shot and not be too far out of position on those, right? Because I think sometimes when you get goalies who you may play aggressively on that first shot, or they challenge out a lot, and sometimes if they're not the big of goalies, it's hard for them to kind of manage that. I mean, that's why someone like UC Saros to me is really impressive, because for a guy that's really not that big compared to other goalies in the league these days, he challenges and sometimes he'll find himself a little out of his crease, but he's not often is he out of position too badly for the second and third shots, if there are any. So again, Markstrom has been so solid there. I just like the way that he's been playing, and to have a really just calming presence back there. It's like, it reminds me a little bit of the Marty days, right? That's the biggest thing I think I missed from those days of the Devils with Brodeur back there. It's like, yeah, Brodeur would have his goals that weren't the best here and there, but just by and large, we're talking 65 plus games of the season he's playing, 70 games he's playing, and it's just that calming presence, and especially during the prime of the Devils, where you had Brodeur, Stevens, Niedermayer, Rafalski, a bunch of those guys back there on the defensive end. It's crazy to think of the kind of team we had, and big Colin White back there. I'm missing a lot of guys, but just so many guys on the defensive side where you just didn't have to worry at all about crazy chances being let up, and then if you were able to make it past all those guys, you had to face Marty. Marty was he's one of the, probably in my opinion, the best goalie of all time, so you had to face him. So that's the difference back then. But even now, I think we're at a place where we can let the offense be the offense and let the goaltending be the goaltending and the defense do their thing. It's each, to steal a football term, it's we're playing complementary hockey, right? That's a big thing about why I feel like the Lindy Ruff situation failed in the second time around, is because, those injuries, and I feel like the way Lindy Ruff had the Devils schemed up was it required our team to have its best players and them to be, playing well. And when we were all very healthy, I thought, again, we made that playoffs the year with Lindy, right? And no one expected us to make the playoffs. And also that year, I think that was the same year where we went on that, what was it, 14 game winning streak or whatever it was. And it's people weren't complaining about him then. They were saying, sorry, Lindy, right? And then they turned again. But I just feel like, Lindy, Ruff had a good, well, decent, I guess you could argue, but he had a pretty good plan in place. But I just think that there were more things that contributed to it than just his coaching. But again, I'm not saying he was the best coach for the Devils. Personally, I liked him, but I know a lot of Devils fans did not like him. So he didn't have success last year. So that's what happens. But I like where Sheldon Keefe has put the team this year. But yeah, I think having just the ability for guys I think Paul Cotter has been incredible, right? The opportunity. I think everyone was upset that we had to let go of Holtz, but I will take Cotter over Holtz all day at this point, right? Cotter has been incredible. I think Jack is starting to come back to who he used to be, and as if he's some washed up veteran, and he's not. But I think maybe a shoulder injury was still affecting him. I don't know. So who knows? Sometimes it takes a while for you to get just in the rhythm of things. But I also feel like too, like even when he wasn't scoring a lot of goals early in the season, I think he was doing a lot of great things away from the puck, away from the play, or with the puck, but not just getting on the stat sheet. But he was still doing good stuff. I mean, and like what more can you say about Jesper Bratt? Like he has been just playing incredibly. Like his speed, I just feel like Jesper Bratt's speed, his acceleration from 0 to 100, his ability to go from dead stop to just fast rush. It's so awesome. It's so awesome to have that player and to have him continue the way he's played over the years, and like just everyone's playing well. Nason this game played really well. I mean, Heischer's always been playing well this season. I think he's been one of the really top guys this year on the offense or on the team in general, but I just think on the offensive side for sure. It's like I think it's only a matter of time before guys like Dougie Hamilton get on a bit of a streak here. I just feel like he's going to get on a streak this year. Like I think he's really hungry to get some goals, and even Timo Meier too. Like it's just going to happen. And Mercer's been playing well. I thought early on in the season he was playing a little rough, but now he's starting to play better. So like it's just it's great. I mean, I think where the Devils are at is in a good spot, and hopefully they can keep continuing the success here. I mean, this is they kind of put themselves in a place where this is a new standard, right? Again, like it's just when you're able to beat the champs on their home ice, back to back games, that kind of sets a new level of confidence in the room that hey, they could do this and that they are capable of knocking off the champs, and going toe to toe with any team, right? Like even if you are like the Jets or whoever, but they do have to play the full 60. They have to be responsible on their own end. Giveaways, like there was almost a really bad giveaway that could end up with the goal that Jack had. But overall, I think their play has been really incredible so far, and hopefully they keep it rolling because it's been fun. It's been fun to watch. Unfortunately, every time I've been to a game though, they haven't won. So come on, Devils, let's get a win here at home, right? Because I don't have to travel to fucking Los Angeles for you guys just to win to watch a win live. So we'll see how that goes. All right, I'm going to touch now on just a couple games in the NFL coming up this week. Dolphins going up against the Raiders. Dolphins currently 3-6. Looking to get some momentum here, make a playoff push. They get the Raiders coming up. And, I think this, to me, like, Raiders, a bit of an inconsistent season, right? They have flashes of strong play, but just overall, where are they at? They're 2-7. I mean, actually, maybe more than inconsistent. Maybe they're consistently not winning. But I think this game, reason why I'm going to, look at this game is I just want to see, for me, this is more so about the Dolphins than the Raiders, right? I don't think the Raiders' playoff hopes are in a good spot at all. But the Dolphins, right? They're there. I mean, well, we'll see. That's what people say. They're 3-6, but this is one of those games where I think that if you are the Dolphins, right? You're looking at Tua, Tyreek, Odell, maybe can add more depth here, but like this is a game where you got to win. Like, you got to win against the Raiders to give yourself a chance. I think the Raiders secondary hasn't been that strong. I think when you have like a Tyreek can run the ball really well, and Odell, I mean, like, I just think maybe not just Raiders secondary, but the defense as a whole, not as strong. So like that's an area that I think that they can try to capitalize on. And, just, I feel like the Dolphins, like last game, or was it 2 games ago, against the Colts, when they lost to the Colts, like, I know, right, like Tua wasn't playing. That's a big factor. But, you got to look at, or even against the Dolphins too, that's a game where, like, it's really difficult to find like some success and offensive production there. If guys like Tyreek and Achane, Waddle, like those are your guys that you have to kind of lean on, and I think sometimes like when the Dolphins haven't had the success, it's been because they aren't able to get those guys in the game more, right? I think when you look back when the Bills played the Dolphins September, and I know it's a little further back, been a while, but that game Tyreek had like 12 yards rushing. I mean, Achane had a lot of the yards, but like that's. I think when you look at this game, I just don't think there's any reason for the Dolphins to not go out and just destroy the Raiders. Honestly, like I mean, they're at home and they have momentum. If you look at their schedule, right, there is a path for this to kind of end up well for them. Like they got the Raiders, Patriots, and Packers probably cause them a bunch of trouble. Jets, with the way the Jets are playing currently, are not a threat, unfortunately. Texans, that might be a tough game. Niners, tough game, but the Browns, and then they have the Jets again. Like, there is a path here for them. So, like, to be able to, when you're playing against a team like the Raiders, like, you have to win these games. Patriots, I think, almost a have to win. Jets, I guess, depending on either side of the fence, like, that's a have to win. But, like, you can't be letting a team like the Raiders be the reason why you lose. If you lose to the Packers, okay. Lose to the Texans, Niners, okay. But I mean, 2-7 Raiders. I get it though. Everyone's in the NFL, and there's no real bad teams, but they definitely have to, tighten up here. And again, like I think exploit that Raiders defense. I don't think the Raiders defense has been that solid this year, so that's one thing that they're gonna have to do. It's a key factor for them. So we'll see how they do, but that's kind of what I'm looking at. I'm taking the Dolphins in that game. And speaking of Jets, the Jets take on the Indianapolis Colts. And so this one is, I think it's going to be interesting, right? I tried so hard this year to be really optimistic for the Jets. And, you have Aaron Rodgers coming back. And just this year has not been good. I think it's just so weird how, like, and I know a lot of it's going to fall on Aaron Rodgers, like, for sure. Like, he's the reason why, it's his fault. He's not playing well, whatever. But I feel like if you actually watch the games, I definitely think you'd see that Aaron Rodgers is not the only problem. Like, there's a Devontae missed a catch, an open, like, in the red zone. Like, she just dropped it, right? There are times where, like, the Garrett Wilsons or, whoever the receivers, like, they drop. There's a lot of drops sometimes. Or Lazard dropped a bunch of passes or early on in the season or whatever. It's like it's not just on Aaron. I do think he could be doing a better job or whatever, but it's not just on him. I mean, they're ranked what? Like, they're ranked 22nd in points per game, averaging just 19, and 18th in total offensive yards per game. I mean, that's, not a good stat when you had high expectations going into the season. Again, they only got 6 points against Arizona, and they didn't even get a touchdown. So, like, it's, it's so frustrating, I think, if you're a Jets fan, and I'm an Aaron Rodgers fan. So, like, it's just frustrating to see, like, they have the talent. I mean, they have skill. I don't think they have, like, elite level skill, except for, like, Devontae. Garrett Wilson's great, but, like, he's still young, so I think he's definitely gonna get there. He's such an incredible receiver, but I think it's hard to put, like, elite level expectations on him. But it's like if one side's not playing well, or if one side's playing well, another one's not. So it gets really frustrating. Another game I want to touch on, talk about, it's definitely got to be the Detroit Lions. Man, are the Lions not a fucking wagon this year? Like, they are, like, it's so cool. I think it's really well deserved. And to see the kind of culture and team that, the Lions have built. Because last year, when they made it in the playoffs and they were close, and they kind of, like, I feel like let the game slip away from them. You hear Dan Campbell talk about, this could be the last time they make it. This could be the last time they make it. You don't know. And, like, the buy-in from the Lions as a team, from Jared Goff to, everyone, like, just and on down. And then keep in mind, they're doing this without, like, Aiden Hutchinson, right? Like without their top, like one of their top defensive players. And they are able to stop the Texans, right? They're 8-1. They stop the Texans, pulled out a great win against the Packers, huge win against the Titans, but narrowly beat the Vikings. It's really like it's kind of jarring a little bit to see how great the Lions are week after week, and we live in a world where like every week you're like, oh yeah, I mean, probably a guarantee that the Chiefs are winning and that the Lions have a good chance of winning or are probably going to win the game. I mean, that's if you were to say that like 3-4 years ago, that probably is not something that would be said. And so definitely so cool to see, so happy for a lot of the Giants fans or Lions fans. And I think the thing that sticks out with me when it comes to the Lions, for them, for a second ago I was talking about the Jets and they are not playing complementary football. I think the Lions kind of like, to use a fancy term, exemplify complementary football. I think with offense, defense, special teams, I think they all support each other. And a big example of that is with that Texans game, right? You had Jared Goff throwing 5 picks and they still win, right? 5 interceptions, they still win the game. He has been, I think Jared Goff has, even in that game, like probably one of his worst games of his career, kind of. I mean, like they still won, but like on paper, worst game of his career. He still has the ability to like do the things he needs to get the win. He's not trying to overcompensate for the 5 picks and all of a sudden he has to throw like 4 or 5 long balls because he threw a pick the last drive or whatever it is. Like he's able to just do what he has to do what he needs to do and should do in a certain situation, like situational football and all that stuff, and just kind of just chug along and like chop away at that lead and or at the game and eventually get to a point where his team is winning the game. And also you look at the other side, again, this is without Aiden Hutchinson. Like the defense has been incredible. The defense has been awesome. I think like they capitalized on turnovers. I thought they had good pressure on CJ Stroud. Didn't really let him do what he does to be successful. And you combine that with also just Jake Bates. I mean, this guy, I think it was last year, he was like working at Trader Joe's or something. What was he doing? He was what was he doing? A brick salesman. He was a brick salesman in December of 2023. So a year ago, he was a brick salesman. And he tried out for the UFL. And a year later, he is playing for one of the best teams in the NFL. That's, if that's not an incredible story, I don't know what is. That's so cool to see stories like that and guys like that are able to, turn it around and find success and just stick with it. But you look at, his, like the last 2 kicks he did, like just barely through the goalpost there, which is crazy. But I think if you look at the Lions in general, right? I mean, again, starting with Goff, like I think he's been resilient this year. I really like his accuracy this year. He has been very on point with his passes. I mean, the 5 or whatever it was, 4 or 5 interceptions, notwithstanding, not that game. But I just think when he's on his game or majority of the season, I really like the way the decisions he makes with the ball. He's very accurate, and every quarterback's going to have their bad games where they throw picks and stuff like that. But so far this year, it hasn't been a lot from him. Hasn't been a lot of those bad games from him. And I definitely got to talk I think Dan Campbell's culture that he's brought to the team. I think it's really refreshing. And I think there is this because everyone's bought in, like I said a while ago, but it's because of just the kind of guy that Dan Campbell is. I just feel like he's perfect for this team. He's perfect. He is that rah-rah guy. He's that rah-rah guy that's someone like Jared Goff, who's kind of understated. He's quiet. He's very to himself. or not to himself, but he's very just like not he's not yelling and screaming all the time. But when you have that like opposites attract thing where Dan Campbell is a guy that can really, bring the fire and bring that energy, it helps motivate guys like, you Jared Goff. I mean, you have guys like Aiden Hutchinson, who's just a great guy, and like Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean, all these guys from Jameer, everyone on the team. I mean, it's really it goes back to that culture, right? The culture of the kind of people on that team, all bought in. David Montgomery, Laporta, Jameson Williams. I mean, everyone. A lot of these guys. I mean, Anzalone. Like these guys are Dan Campbell kind of guys, right? These guys are hard nosed, going to like play your guts out for their coach, for their team, because they all believe in the system that Dan Campbell has brought in, right? So that's my opinion. One of the best things about the Lions team is because if you look at like teams like the Patriots in years past, not comparing them to the Patriots in terms of just dynasty wise, I'm just saying like whenever you have a culture like the Belichick, they call it the Patriot way, but whenever you have a culture like what Belichick brought to the Patriots, regardless of what culture does or Harbaugh brings to the Chargers or the Ravens and things like that, like or Andy Reid to the Chiefs, whenever you have a team that just buys in, like that's, whatever identity they are, whatever culture they are, you need your team to buy in. And that's what gives you a really good chance to be successful. I think it's whenever you have a team that like, they're not committed to what the coach wants, or people don't know what the identity is. The coach doesn't know what structure he's trying to bring to the team. It's just a lot of moving parts, which is kind of what I feel like some teams are, like the Colts maybe, or even the Jets or whatever. But with the Lions, they've just been a fully bought-in team, and I just think that they have been, again, across all sides of the ball, from offense, defense, special teams. It's just been really fun to watch them, and they're definitely a go-to for me to watch every week and to see what they've done. But it's been fun, and I just think that, I mean, Jacksonville is in for a rough game, I think, because I don't see the Lions slowing down this game. But could be wrong. You never know. Any given Sunday, right? But I just think this week we're gonna see we might see a shellacking, but we'll see if it gets close. We'll see if they can keep it close at all. All right, next game I want to talk about is the Ravens against the Steelers. I think this game to me is definitely one to watch. You got two teams that, like, I think Ravens have been dominant this year. I think they have been just really on a roll. You talk about the Lions being dominant. I also think the Ravens are just right up there too. Maybe in some areas a little bit more so, just because they have that. They have the Derrick Henrys, they have Lamar, they have Zay Flowers. They have just such a great offense. I think defense is where I think the Lions have a bigger advantage. Just the Ravens defense has been a little suspect a little bit in the past couple of weeks, but I think for this game, starting with the Ravens, I think Lamar, right? Like he is a cheat code, right? You have cheat code. He is able to scramble around in third downs and red zone on chances, and like his ability to scramble. There's that one play where he just like completely. He was the play. Any other quarterback, they're done. Like he goes down, he goes out of bounds, he throws it out of bounds, whatever it was. He like goes all the way back, scrambles a little bit, skirts the edge of the line of the out of bounds line or whatever, comes back in, and I think he's able to get a first down or something. But he's just so fun to watch, and there's a reason why guys like Peyton and Tom say like he is one of the best QBs in the game today, but he is one of the next level kind of guys in the years to come. And what I like about his game is like he's been able to. He still has a dual threat, but he's been able to also improve a lot of his throwing and minimize the turnovers. And I think he's just gotten better at like reads and taking advantage of like mismatches, right? I think he's throwing the ball to Mark Andrews in critical moments, and that's always been a connection over the years that I think this season we haven't seen as much compared to years past, because he's got Derrick Henry, Zay Flowers, he's got guys that are like, so skilled and talented, and you're almost like you sit back and go, okay, how is a team really going to beat them? Well, I think the answer to that is their defense. I think their defense is unfortunately, um, the I'm not gonna say a weak link, but it's just not their best. Like it's just not the best all the time. I think they have to really clean that up to move deep down the line. Because they got the offensive weapons. They have Deontay Johnson, and then they got again Derrick Henry, Dave Flowers, Lamar, all these guys, Mark Andrews, Rashad Bateman. It's like they just have a lot of offensive firepower that I just wish too that they would kind of they did get someone on defense that could help them out a little bit more. But I think they're going to be really tough to play against no matter what. I think for them, what's weird, and Bill Belichick talks about this a lot with the Ravens, is like the team that can beat the Ravens really is the Ravens, right? Like their turnovers, they have to minimize the turnovers. I think the turnover factor has come in a bunch with the losses that Baltimore has gone through this year. I think Lamar Jackson just has to kind of throw a clean game, no interceptions, don't fumble the ball, just this because the Steelers defense is scary, right? You got TJ Watt, right? That's always a scary thing to kind of go up against and face. They're going to be bringing pressure. But it's hard, right? Because like Lamar can scramble. So I'm really interested to see how they play that. Like TJ is such a incredible just athlete. He's such a good player, but he's also dealing with a Lamar Jackson who he can scramble like hell. So he may find himself kind of getting like juked out of the pocket just because Lamar is so good. He's so elusive in the pocket, as they say. So I think it's going to be really fun to watch that matchup. But also, let's not forget, you got the King, right? You got King Derrick Henry. So I wonder how Chris Tomlin, or Mike Tomlin, not Chris Tomlin, Mike Tomlin. Chris Tomlin is the Christian singer. Different kind of Tomlin. He's also a white guy, so very different kind of Tomlin. But Mike Tomlin is going to face up against how he's going to handle Derrick Henry, right? Because I just know like Tomlin is such a good coach, and like the Steelers, I think defensively are very good, and I think that they are going to have a good scheme and game plan against them. And when you've got like a guy like Derrick Henry, and everyone knows he's going to get the ball at some point, he's going to try to run it down, the other team's throat, basically. I'm very interested to see how they handle that. It's going to be cool. It's going to be interesting, I think. And that's going to be key, I think, for Baltimore to kind of really beat the Steelers here, is to see how they do against the run with Derrick Henry. But I think being able to keep, and then on the defensive side for the Ravens, I think just being able to keep Russell Wilson in the pocket, just pressure that pocket. I think like Russell Wilson's deep ball has gotten, back to its form this year. And he has that really great ability to really air it out, which I know we didn't really see that much when he was with Denver, but this is a different Russ this year. And so I think the Ravens, that Ravens secondary, I think it's going to have to watch out. I just don't think the Ravens defense is that good. So that's where I think that's where the Steelers are going to try to exploit the Ravens a little bit, is in that secondary, as opposed to trying to match run game for run game. I do think Russ has a great arm, and I don't know how much he is going to like hand the ball off or rely on his legs like Lamar will. So we'll see like how that plays out. I know they've got Najee Harris, they've got Jalen Warren. These guys are key for the Steelers' run game and the rushing game, but like I just think that they have a better chance of kind of exploiting the Ravens through the passing, through the air. So we'll see how that goes. But I think so. Kind of now moving on to the Steelers' keys for victory here, ways that they can win the game. I think that like with Russ having the chemistry he has with Pickens and the newly from the Jets, Mike Williams, I think they just have a really good chance again to exploit Ravens secondary. I think the Ravens secondary has had like really bad lapses in deep coverage this year, and a couple of big games this season. And like even the game against the was it the Bengals or whoever when they really no, not the Bengals. It was definitely a week before that. But the Ravens were up by a lot, and they basically almost let the lead go because their defense just stopped playing, it seemed like. And against a team like the Steelers, where again, a Mike Tomlin coach Steelers, it's just not, you can't be doing that. Like, I think it was against the Bucks, to be honest, where they just stopped playing towards the end of it all. Yeah, I think that was the game. Basically let them in towards the end there, but I think that they're going to really, need to. I don't think they're going to match the output that Derrick Henry and Lamar will in terms of rushing yards, but I do think that Najee and Jalen Warren will provide a good amount of the run game, and I just think that the ability that Mike Tomlin is going to have to kind of infuse the run game there with Russ and the game plan they have, I think it's going to be good. I think having a solid run game does set up some good play action opportunities. So like, it makes it easier for Russ to like create some separation for receivers down the field and all that. But I think they're just going to have to also, I think the big part of it too, weirdly enough, is the best way to counter Lamar is to keep him on the bench, right? Like control that clock. And I think Mike Tomlin is one of the best at controlling the clock and having his offense out there, extending plays. And I think Russ has a great ability to extend plays with his throws, with his feet. He's pretty mobile. Maybe not as much as he used to be, but just enough. And I think his O-line's going to have to help him out, giving him time in the pocket. I think that like Ravens have a pretty strong pass rush. And so sometimes if, Russ gets pressured, he could maybe have some mistakes there, maybe throw some interceptions and picks. So that's something that the Ravens are going to be looking to do against the Steelers. So that O-line for the Steelers is going to have to step up. But, I think overall, like, also keeping in mind turnovers, right? I think, like I said, like the Ravens turnovers, I think, is what's cost them this year. They'll fumble the ball and like, beat themselves by all that kind of stuff. So I think this year they're really going to have to, not this year, this game, they're going to have to just take care of the ball. Same thing with the Steelers and also Russ, like, because he is going to get pressure too. And I think this Ravens pass rushes, I think, is pretty solid, where I think they're going to try to force him to throw some interceptions and make bad plays and rush him, which I think Russ last year had that tendency, but maybe this year's he's different. So we'll see how that happens, and we'll see what Mike Tomlin does against this Ravens team, because I definitely trust like what Tomlin can do on the offensive side to counter what this Ravens defense has, and also especially on the defensive side, what Tomlin can do to counter against Derrick Henry and Lamar's run game. We'll see if they can stop those things. Or maybe they just know that, hey, that's going to happen, and they'll just try to take care of like any possible passing game for the Ravens, and then try to keep Lamar off the field, get points, and limit the ability for Ravens to pass the ball. So they're going to have to run it, and the clock's going to run. And so that's just another approach to it too, right? There's just another way to kind of scheme up against the Ravens. But it's going to be a fun game. I think it's going to be a really good game. I think I'm really excited to see which of these two teams come out on top for sure.